Greetings, and we are live. Hello, everyone. I'll give it a second for everyone to load in as we get started here. I'm going to give my very inflated intro to this wonderful guest we have today. I'm so thrilled to have her on today. I've been lucky enough to be on her show as well. Today, we have someone who is a true pioneer of the plant-based world. And if you've spent any time on YouTube looking for plant-based or vegan content, you've likely come across her and her hundreds of interviews on her own channel. She's been plant-based for over 40 years. She's the author of several best-selling books, including The Secrets of Ultimate Weight Loss. And her latest release, which comes out today, is Sweet Indulgence, which we just did a review on last weekend. And I have that in the link down in the description below. It offers a guilt-free way to satisfy your sweet tooth with plant-based treats. And today we're diving deep into her journey. We're going to talk about her philosophy on desserts and, of course, her latest book. And if you have any questions, throw them in the comments down below and we'll get to them hopefully at some point. And it's an additional treat because not only are we going to chat and answer your questions, she's also going to show us a few of her quick desserts. So without further ado, everyone, Chef AJ.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Jeremy.
I'm imagining all the clapping in the background. I don't have set up for that. Imagine much clapping around the world right now. Thank you so much for joining us on your release day.
I know, what a great day to be here.
You must just be doing the gauntlet, right? How many of these things are you doing today?
I'm trying to do like Dr. Will B, but he did way more than me. I'm doing about 5 to 7 of other people's shows a day, but really just the first 5 days, because after that, while I appreciate anyone buying the book, to be a New York Times bestseller, it's the first 5 days that matter. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then they don't count the sales anymore.
So there you go. So if you weren't one of the people that did the pre-order and got that whole bouquet of amazing things that were offered in it, get it this week. Get it right now. The link is in the description down below.
You still can get all the bonuses up until August 31st, over $1,000 worth of bonuses, including a video of every single recipe, all 157 in the book. It's about 20 hours of video. So you'll be doing a lot of viewing.
I can't imagine how long that must have taken to produce. Wow, good for you.
It took 6 months.
Yeah, that's a lot. So there you go. There's no reason, if you're a big fan of Chef AJ in this book, which you should be, again, you can see our review on it. We just put it up in the weekend. And AJ watched it and was not offended by my children, and she still decided to come and do that.
I love that it was an honest review, and I thought it was fair. And I don't expect everybody to like every recipe, but the fact that the majority of the recipes were so well received was wonderful.
Well, I just love it because, one thing we sometimes get criticism for on ours is that I always try to make the recipes from the books whole food plant-based. So I'll do modifications for it. And I'm always upfront about it. But what's great about your book is I didn't have to do that at all. I didn't have to do anything to make a whole food plant-based. I didn't have to do anything to make them gluten-free because it was naturally that way. So I think it's one of the first.
Every recipe is gluten-free. I've always done that, Jeremy, because I'm gluten-free. But even when I wasn't gluten-free, there's so many people that are. So why have to make 2 dishes? Just make everything gluten-free,
Well, that's just it. And I still don't understand why you have restaurants out there that don't cater to more dietary, I don't want to say restrictions, but sometimes restrictions. It's a monetary thing. You'll make more money. The more people you can feed.
We were at a book signing. I signed 400 books at a seat at the table on Sunday. And we didn't know it was going to take 7 hours. So we were looking for food, and there was a Togo's there. It's a sandwich shop like Subway. And I called and I said, "Do you have gluten-free bread?" "No." I'm like, "Why not? Everybody else does."
Yeah, it's not that hard. It's 2024. Get on the train.
I know. It's no, just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming a lot of people here know your story, but I'd still love, I don't know if I've heard it from you. How did you go from being a pastry chef into, what I would consider one of our plant-based leaders today? Can you give us that story?
Thank you. That's a tall order. I feel more like of a minion, one of the minions of the greats that went before me, like Dr. McDougall. I was a pastry chef really only for about 5 years. I think that was from 2007 to 2011 in Los Angeles. The restaurant closed. And it was a good thing it closed because that's when the first book that Glenn and I wrote together, the first edition of Unprocessed, came out. And I really kind of needed to promote that. So, I don't really consider myself a leader. I consider myself fairly knowledgeable because I've been vegan for 47 years, at least knowledgeable and, eating plant-based, and really, especially in being able to teach people to cook this way and do it fairly easily. I've been a culinary instructor, even before I went to culinary school in 2003, I was able to teach at a cooking school, a local cooking school in Santa Monica called Dick and Jane Cook Vegetarian. And so I've been teaching cooking for 25 years. And that's, that's really my passion. It wasn't like I was setting out to be like a YouTuber or even an author. And even still today, if you ask me what I like best, it's really the in-person cooking experience. COVID kind of messed that up for a lot of people. A lot of the culinary schools closed. But I just got back from 8 days in Mexico, where I go several times a year to Rancho La Puerta to teach hands-on cooking. And to me, that's the most gratifying when people actually do it themselves, and when you can help facilitate that and help them have what I call, kitchen fitness, confidence in the kitchen, because so many people are afraid of the pressure cooker, for example. And so that's my favorite thing, is teaching people how to cook. It's like that old saying, I don't like to use animal analogies, but, give a man a fish, he eats for today. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And that's always been my passion, is trying to teach people to eat plant exclusive, preferably without oil and with little or no sugar and salt, and make it easy, delicious, and fun. And for people to take my in-person classes, I think I accomplish that, because also I have a background as a stand-up comedian, which doesn't always come through on interviews or YouTube, but in person. Anybody that's telling me at Cuca College, in person, I can really kind of push the envelope a little farther and do my song parodies and include, my humor a little more than sometimes on an interview.
Yeah. Well, you can jump into song at any point in time you want to hear.
The only problem with singing on YouTube is you get those darn copyright strikes.
It's true. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's so fun. I love cooking in person with people, especially people that are like eager and interested, because you just see their eyes light up and they're just constantly amazed by how easy it is to do some of the things we do, and how some of the swaps and almost every single time, and I'm sure you get this, people leave those scenarios going, well, how come I didn't know this before? How come I've been doing it this way the whole time? Especially with oil, right? Especially as soon as people realize that math equation of like the 100 calories, your buck. You know what I mean?
I think oil is such it's so interesting how people, it's one thing to feel like you need it, but to think that you need it for cooking, it's just, it's absolutely not true. And when you omit oil, not only do you save an egregious amount of calories, 4,000 calories per pound, 120 to 130 calories per tablespoon, but you end up saving so much money, and your cleanup is easier. And, for years I called it a cooking cabaret in my apartment in Sherman Oaks until I moved out of the Southern California area in 2019. And I called it Healthy Made Delicious. And we did 18 recipes in 3 hours. There were 3 songs plus lots of jokes. And one of the favorite things in all the classes, believe it or not, was banana ice cream. People could not believe that you could take one banana, and I would make it in front of them in a Champion juicer, and they would see me make it and they go, "What's in this?" And I go, "Banana." "No, what did you put in this?" I go, "Banana." Like that would blow people's mind. And still today, banana ice cream is still one of my favorite go-to desserts. I never get sick of it. I can't believe how good it is.
No, it's so, and you can just do it on its own if you want to add like some macadamia nuts or something just to give it a little fattierness. But it's so, it's crazy how easy it is, but people are constantly amazed. Just I made a tart, like you were talking about the oil. Like I literally made a tart last night. The recipe called for like a half a cup of oil inside the filling and 2 tablespoons in the crust. I'm like, just by I swapped them both out with aquafaba, saved 600 calories, and there's it's still delicious. I couldn't tell you the difference because I didn't try the other way, but it was, the middle was fluffy.
I think side by side, you couldn't tell either. I don't do this anymore because it takes a while, but I used to do this in my classes where I would make a recipe, for example, my nutrient-rich black bean soup. And I would make it with the obligatory, I say obligatory because recipes always seem to start with like 4 tablespoons of oil, saute the onion, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd make it without it. And then I would serve them side by side. And people just couldn't tell the difference. And if they guessed the better one, they would guess wrong. Oil has no taste. I mean, it has a lot of fat, but I mean, you're much better off. And I'm not telling people they have to eat low fat or eat no fat, but you're so much better off to use nut butters and seed butters or avocado for oil, because at least you're getting some nutritional value and fiber and nutrients. And oil, it's weird to me that whether people eat animals or not, that they still eat oil. To me, that's one of the weirdest things. I think of oil as something for cars, not for people.
I agree. What would you say? What are some of the most common questions that you get, either through your YouTube channel or in your live or in your live classes? Like, do you have one or two that were like the ones that, like,
Well,
without a fail, they always come up?
Anybody that's been vegan or plant-based or plant exclusive for more than a minute probably gets this question. And if I had a nickel for every question, where do you get your protein?
I'm literally wearing your shirt, right?
I know. It's like, that's right. Where do you get your fiber? I have a PCRM t-shirt that says fiber is the new protein, something like that. That question just, I wish like there was a way to have like the Cliff Notes of Proteinaholic by Dr. Garth Davis that I could just like hand out to people. People are still amazed that plants have protein. And I'm like, have you ever seen an elephant or a rhinoceros? Where do they get their protein? So that probably is the number one question and the number one misconception you get. And then, of course, if you don't drink milk, where do you get, sorry, I'm making a funny voice, but where do you get your calcium? And it's like, well, did you know that like greens and sesame seeds have like more calcium that's in a more utilizable form than milk, and that people that drink dairy products have a higher rate of osteoporosis? There's so much misinformation about nutrition. And then lately it's the lectins. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think it still chalks up to like the earlier generations that these food guides were created that were all sponsored by these industries, by the meat industry, the dairy industry. They gave the money that made these food guides that supported their products and the food that they wanted you to eat, and so generations of people are trained on those guides thinking that they're actual be based on science and nutrition, and they're not. They're based on industry interests. And so like example here, and I've talked about it in the channel before, but here in Canada, it's the first time 3 years ago, our new food guide came out. They didn't let any industry influence go in, and plant-based proteins were recommended over animal-based proteins.
That's amazing. I believe that a lot of things, especially dairy and oil, are what some people would call a triumph of marketing over science.
Yeah.
And Marion Nessel, who writes a lot about food politics, talks about this all the time, and like when people worry about things because this scientific research article said, go all the way to the bottom, see who, before you believe it, that you have to eat nuts every day, go to the bottom of the study. And when it's funded by the nut industry, maybe think twice about it. I like to see research done by people that don't have a vested interest in what they're selling you.
100%.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, throw them in the comments down below. Put a little Q in front. It'll just help me sort them out amongst all the other wonderful comments. So many people are in there already talking about how they're either waiting for your book to show up.
Oh, thank you.
Teresa says hers just showed up and can't wait to decide what to make first.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. I'm so glad. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, well, you're going to get a preview today from AJ herself, but you can also look at our review video to see some of the ones that we made.
Yeah, you made some good ones.
There was no shortage. My wife went, like, you should see, we flag the books, right? Like I'd say half the book is just flagged. She was so happy that we didn't have to bring that book back to the library.
I do that too, actually. I mean, this is my working copy that I don't mind getting messy, and this is my visual copy, but I do that all the time too.
Oh, I love to write in cookbooks. I just like my own little notes, if you want to like a little bit more of this or a little less of that. It's just so, I love a hard copy of a cookbook. They'll never go away.
Yep.
So why don't we get started? You've got a couple recipes. We're gonna keep on chatting, but you've got a couple recipes you're gonna make. So what did you want to start with?
So because I'm doing so many broadcasts and I don't want to do the same recipe every time because people say, I just saw her do that on PCRM or on Dr. Will B. What I thought I'd do for you is one category of the book. And so we divided this book into categories like sip it, drizzle it, things like that, really fun ideas, pop it, chill it. And so there are only two recipes in the book that come under the category of nuke it, meaning that require a microwave. Just two. And I'm going to do both of them because they're so quick and easy. I'm going to make the quick, well, that's what happens when husband isn't home. I'm going to do the quick Pear Delight and the 1 minute mug cake after I pick up everything that just fell.
It's the beauty of live interviews.
Yeah. It went pretty far away. Okay. So one of the things, so the first thing I'm going to make is the 1 minute mud cake. Not mud, but mug. But it could almost be a mud cake because it does have a chocolate-like flavor, even though there's no chocolate in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my desert date shake. I used to live in Indio, California, and the date shake was created in the Coachella Valley. And I don't remember exactly where, but Hadley's used to sell them, but they had dairy in them and, of course, sugar. And then now Hadley's has a dairy-free option. But my husband used to go to this place. It was $12 for a date shake. And I'm like, you can't have this every day. That's way too expensive. So they wouldn't tell me the recipe, but they had to tell me the ingredients. So I reverse engineered it at home for the desert date shake. And we love this so much that we have all the spices pre-measured. When you buy spices, instead of throwing out this jar, just wash it in the dishwasher. The label will come off. And then I do this for soups, stews, and chilies too. I have it pre-measured. So then when I want this, it's very easy. And I just got back from teaching at La Cocina Picante in Tecate, Mexico. And this was one of the favorite recipes of the class. So we're just going to start with our non-dairy milk. And I am using unsweetened almond milk, but any type of non-dairy milk you like, preferably unsweetened, to keep it refined sugar 3. It smells so good. The nutmeg and the vanilla powder. We have a little chia seeds and oats in here. This supplies the creaminess, and of course the cassia cinnamon for extra sweetness. Now this is optional. If you want to turn the desert date shake into the guilt-free frappuccino, we're going to add a little bit of this. Now this happens to be a brand called Say Me, which is no longer available. So I will use it up and then find another brand of a brown rice coffee substitute. My husband and I are very caffeine sensitive, but you can use a different type if you like. I mean, if you can have coffee or espresso powder, you could use that. Tequino, what's it called? The Dandy blend. So you're going to use 1 to 1.5 to maybe 2, depending on how coffee like you like it. I feel this almost tastes like mocha more than coffee, but my husband does like that as the addition. I like it the more vanilla flavor better. And so then I'm going to, I forgot an ingredient. I'll be right back. How could I forget my medjool dates? I'll be right back.
And for those that, it's interesting, AJ and I were both responding to a comment on the channel about her review, and someone mentioned how one of the recipes was ridiculously expensive because of the medjool dates. But as we were talking about on the side, it's like you can often just replace with
no, I use the Deglet Nord. They're $2.69 a pound. The medjool are 3 to 4 times as much. I can get the organic pitted medjool at Trader Joe's, and you're going to put in maybe 3. If you want it super sweet, you can put in 4. And we're going to put in our bananas, which have been already frozen. And make sure when you freeze your banana, of course, you'll want to peel them because it's going to be very hard to get the peel off if they're frozen. And you want them as ripe as possible. The more dark spots, the sweeter it gets. And I'm using a high-powered blender. You could use any blender you have, and we're just going to blend.
Someone is just asking, how would you alter the liquid in the shake if you only have, I'm going to say that wrong, bag? I'll wait for the blender to finish.
It blended a little bit longer than I would have liked because I didn't soak the dates in advance. And I don't know what taquino bags are. Is the taquino bag just the taquino? Because maybe you could just cut the bag open and put the powder in. So I would have to look at the ingredients, but I don't know if I would necessarily alter the liquid. So now I have my delicious desert date shake. And when I serve it to my husband, I just serve it like this, in a beautiful glass, and it's so thick and creamy. And we'll save that for him for when he gets home. I'll take my favorite mug. My child has 4 legs and fur, and I'm going to pour it in there. So the reason I'm not filling it up all the way is because sometimes in the microwave, it just kind of rises, and I don't want it to spill over. So I'm going to put it in for 2 minutes.
And someone wanted to know, can you substitute the raisins for dates?
So I'm going to say it really depends on the recipe. Raisins are delicious, but they're dried grapes. And so they have a more raisiny, if you will, or distinct flavor than dates. Dates tend to be just extremely neutral, just sweet, or sometimes a slight caramel or vanilla flavor. So, there's golden raisins and regular raisins. there are certain recipes that it might work well in, but I feel like they might have slightly a little bit more of an overpowering flavor. If you have the book and tell me what recipe you're considering substituting, I could probably give you a better idea. But I'm thinking, like, let's just say, for instance, I'm going to be going live on my channel and making the decadent chocolate mousse. I feel like a raisin would interfere or compete with what I'm going for. So I'm not saying no, I'm going to say it depends. And all these recipes were tested with the dates. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stick that in the fridge. This is just really delicious. It's hard to believe, but that one recipe, you know, we were getting like 10 or 12 servings out of, but we were doing like little shots, you know, like an amuse-bouche for the class. Yeah. But people really love this. And you know what else we did? Let me just stick this in the fridge because with the hot lights, you know how that goes. Yeah. We, you know, Rancho La Puerta, and nothing comes from a can, a box, a bottle. Well, of course, there's a few things like balsamic vinegar that comes in a bottle, but we make our own almond milk. And there's many recipes in this book for all different kinds of plant milks, but almond milk might be one of the easiest to make. And if you have the time, you know, it does make a recipe like this, like even more delicious when you're making your own almond milk.
Yeah. I'll tell you the recipe from your book that I am now making, like, I don't know if it's weekly, but as often as I need it, is you have a great hack in there for making date paste in the Instant Pot.
Oh my God. It is so amazing. And then you can just keep it in your fridge, or it takes 1 minute and you don't have to soak your dates. That almost might be worth the price of the book.
I 100%. Wooly, my wife Wooly, said to personally thank you just for that, because over the years we've always tried to make our own date paste and it's never been like consistent. And now it's the same every time. So you've revolutionized, and because of that, we're using a little less maple syrup and whatnot. And I found that if I just take like a tablespoon of the date paste and mix it with another 2 tablespoons of water, it makes almost like a quick date syrup.
Absolutely. I saw you do that on your channel. So here we have our 1 minute mug cake. If we didn't put the coffee substitute in, it would be more like a vanilla cake. And it's kind of thick, almost like a molten lava cake. And, you know, it's fantastic, especially when we make the date shake and he doesn't finish it all. You know, it's interesting how this came to be. I was teaching a class for UC Davis. I teach the medical schools in person. And I was making this and somebody said, well, how does it taste hot? And I'm like, I thought to myself, ooh, hot date shake? But I didn't say that out loud. I thought, but that sounds weird. And I go, well, I don't know. And so I literally did that. And I'm like, a recipe was created. So that was kind of cool. Here's another really quick and easy recipe. So of course, the healthiest dessert is to eat the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit. And if you can do that, God bless you, you know, but some of us sometimes want a little bit something, you know, richer or just a little bit different. And so this literally, if you have the streusel topping made, will take 2 minutes, or depending on your microwave, maybe a few minutes more. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I love this cutter because it cuts it into 16 wedges instead of 8. And so then I get more pieces of it. And this is a pear. Pears are not necessarily really in season or ripe yet. And so by doing this recipe and microwaving it, it's going to make it more tender and more sweet. Whereas just eating it, it might not be as good of an experience. You can also do this with apples. And so I find that with pears, you know, they are much sweeter when they're ripe. And when they're not ripe, by cooking them, they are sweeter. I don't know what kind of pear this is. It's just maybe it's a red pear. So I'm just going to place it on a microwave safe plate. Very easy. And then I have the streusel topping already made. I keep this always for quick desserts. Now, there's 2 versions of the streusel topping. There's the original version, which is made of pecans, so it does have some fat. But for people that can't have nuts, maybe they're allergic or they're just trying to lower the fat or calorie density of their diet, you can make a similar version with oats. And this is the one I love. And then I just keep this in the refrigerator, and I can sprinkle it over banana and ice cream. I can sprinkle it over fresh fruit. When I make, I noticed that when Jeremy made the pie on my channel, the apple pie that won't make you die, I don't know if there's a note for this in the book because, you know, we were changing things, but I love to slather this over it before I bake it. And so I'm just going to sprinkle it over the pear.
Yeah, I think that note was in there. It reminded us of a Dutch apple pie. that pie.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So yes, one of my favorite recipes and too. So you can put as little as you want on. And what's great is obviously I'm not going to eat right now in front of you, but I'm going to, cook it because it's going to get nice and soft and hot. And then when I'm ready to eat this for dessert later, I can just, reheat it up for another minute. And sometimes I have a recipe in the book called Pear whipped cream. There's a low fat and a higher fat version. And sometimes I'll put that on this. And it's not really fancy, but it sure makes a pear more delicious. So I'm going to microwave this. I'm going to try 2 minutes to start. So when you don't have a lot of time, you can still have, a yummy dessert in just minutes.
Yeah, I found like just us making my kids' favorite thing in the world for a quick dessert is just making a mug cake.
Yeah.
And I love the idea. Someone did ask, I'll pop it up. Tanya said, is that just the date shake microwave to make the mug cake?
Yes, absolutely. You are absolutely correct. And all I did for this one is I added a little bit of the herbal coffee substitute because my husband likes it that way. But absolutely. And who knew that it would make like this thick kind of, like pudding. And, it's so cool. And there's no flour in it. It's really weird that it even worked, or baking powder or baking soda. So yeah, always, there's always a way to figure things out. A lot of times when I don't know what to do with something, I put it in the air fryer and, and see what happens. Put it in the Instant Pot. You never know.
I know so many people, I think you and I are different this way, but it's like so many people are just scared to mess around and to make a mistake in the kitchen, but that's how you discover stuff.
That's how the best recipes are created. And I think because of the fact that I've done so much speaking at conferences where often they put me in a situation where I'm competing against, a really famous chef in a like an Iron Chef or a Chef, you kind of have to learn to think on your feet. And so those are my favorite types of experiences, because I'm not saying that anybody can follow a recipe, because some people have trouble doing that, but following a recipe is fantastic. But if you can learn to color outside the lines, I think it'll free you up when you don't have an ingredient. Like, I don't live near a store anymore. I used to live next door to Trader Joe's for 30 years. It was amazing. But now it's 20 minutes to the nearest store. And I don't know a lot of my neighbors. So sometimes, you have to improvise. And that's sometimes how you create even better or different recipes if you're just willing to make a mistake. And the thing is, the motto of my culinary school was really, there's no mistakes. I mean, there are a few things that are hard to fix in cooking. Like if you added too much salt or too much heat, you generally can't recover from that unless you make another recipe and blend it in. But the motto of my culinary school was, it's not what you can make, it's what you can fix.
I love that. So what do you have a general philosophy in terms of let's talk about Sweet Indulgence. Like, you've made this masterpiece of a book of just all desserts. As we look at this pear, what would you say your kind of approach is when creating desserts that are both delicious but also health conscious?
Yeah. And so it's hard to see, but this pear is like now nice and soft. And I think another minute would be great when I eat it. I'm going to answer that, but I got to show you because I know you're going to say, what's your favorite recipe? So I already made it. Hold on. I already made it. I happened to make it yesterday, and it's probably the thumbprint cookies, because they're so easy and they only bake for 5 minutes. So these are some of my favorite. So when I'm making a recipe,
right? There's only 4 ingredients.
Yeah, four ingredients. It's oats, dates. Yeah, 4 ingredients: oats, dates, vanilla, and your favorite fruit sweetened jam. Nothing could be easier than this, and kids would love them. And they really are quite delicious. So when I'm trying to make a recipe healthy, the first thing I look at is, no animal products, right? Obviously. And with dessert, it's not that hard because, I don't know if people putting fish and meat and stuff in a dessert. Generally, the animal products you find would be eggs and dairy. But vegan baking and vegan desserts have been around a very long time. They haven't always been, quite as healthy, because generally they would still include white sugar, white flour, and lots of oil. But the fact that you don't have to rely on animal products to make desserts, I mean, that is just a fact, and cheesecakes, for example, tofu, Miyoko's cream cheese. You can make your own cream cheese out of cashews. There's so many. This has never been a better time to go vegan or plant-based, because the options available to you weren't around when I went vegan in 1977. So And so I think about, I do think about calorie density because, even though I'm 60 to 70 pounds lighter now, I wasn't always this way. And so I really want to be able to eat more and weigh less. And so I like to have the biggest volume bang for my caloric buck. So in other words, I'm what a lot of people call a volume eater. I don't get full on skimpy portions of high calorie dense food. It doesn't mean that I don't. Sometimes, I do eat some avocado and bread, and I'll eat nuts if I don't really use nuts here, but like Rancho La Puerta, if it's in something or somebody's house. And so I think about things, that are less calorically dense. So for example, there are 157 recipes in the book, but 108 of them have low caloric density and are low fat. And I wanted to make sure that people like Dr. McDougall would endorse my book because he obviously is a promoter of the low-fat diet. So there are things that are higher fat, like the peanut butter chocolate cheesecake, the German chocolate cake, the stuffed cupcake. And so I'm okay with those because they're whole foods. I never have a problem using nuts, preferably unsalted and raw, seeds, avocado, tofu, which is, even though it's lower caloric density, it's high fat. But I found that as I started losing weight, I could still maintain the flavors and the integrity of the recipes by swaps. And I know some of them because you already said oil for aquafaba, like 0 calories for 4,000. Hello, that's a big difference. One of the biggest swaps, and you can see that in the book. And I do say you can substitute because also think about it this way, even people that can eat nuts. I know so many parents, my next door neighbor, in fact, the kid is allergic to every nut. That's just the way it is. And so he can still enjoy these recipes by, for example, using oats as a crust, because oats and dates make as good of a crust as oats and nuts, in my opinion, because it's all about what you're filling it with anyway. So, nuts are 3,200 calories a pound. Oats are about 1,800 calories. Well, grains are 500 calories a pound. So it depends whether they're cooked in water, but it's still a significant savings in both calories and fat. Beans, for example, there's a recipe for peanut butter fudge truffles. And believe it or not, if you want, you can substitute a lot of the nut butter for a can of black beans. You still need to include a little bit of the nut butter in because you're not trying to make a bean flavored truffle, but it's amazing. A friend of mine, Robin, figured that out years ago. It's amazing how much you can cut back on the fat without cutting back on the flavor. And Dr. Barbara Rolls, who is like the queen of calorie density, she's somebody that discovered this a long time ago, because her book is based in the principles of calorie density. So I look at those kind of things. And, dates have calories. Dates are about 1,300 calories per pound, but they're still a lot less calorically dense than sugar, which is 1,800 calories per pound. And the problem with sugar is you don't get really a lot of satiety from it because there's no water or fiber, whereas dates have water and fiber, plus the vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and micronutrients. So I just kind of look at the whole food. And then a lot of people told me as this progressed that they have a problem with dates, that they're food addicts and they just can't have dates around the house. And so that's when I started thinking, okay, well, what else can we use for sweetness without having to rely on, like fake sweeteners like monk fruit or lohan or stevia, erythritol, xylitol, those kind of things. Bananas are amazing. When bananas are ripe, it's amazing what you can accomplish with them. And even pears, maybe this pear, because it was not ripe, not so much, but canned pears in their own juice or in grapefruit concentrate, or pears after you roast them, my goodness, they are so sweet. And, just like when you roast a vegetable or a sweet potato versus cooking it another way, like in water or microwaving it, when you roast a fruit, you bring out that natural sweetness. So there's ways to really satisfy your sweet tooth without using sugar with a few of the tips and tricks I give. The fruit sweetened jam, I don't make it anymore, even though there's a recipe in my book, which is just basically fruit and chia seeds, because every store, including, don't discount Walmart. First of all, Walmart was the first person to get my book to people. It was so funny because people ordered from a variety of places, and all the people that ordered from Walmart had their book last week. So that was really fun. But Walmart, I teach a lot of classes in underserved communities, because since the pandemic, I started just teaching classes, not just for the McDougall 12-day program, but for lots of doctors and hospital systems. And one of the things I'm told, and I have been told, is that every ingredient must come from Walmart, because there are people where that is literally the only store they have. And it's incredible that You can find everything in my book at Walmart. You can find the date syrup. You can find unsweetened chocolate. It's $1.88 at Walmart. I mean, the prices are absolutely incredible. And you can find the fruit sweetened jam, or you can make your own. And fruit sweetened jam's been around for quite a while, actually.
Yeah.
Even in the regular grocery store. So those are, and I think, I don't remember if it was on your channel or somebody said, what, are these recipes going to be sweet enough? Yes. I wish people would not underestimate the power of date for sweetening. Dates are nature's candy. They are so sweet. It's like eating the candy called Kraft caramel. Dates are they're 70% sugar and very low water. So yeah.
100%. And what I loved about your book too is you also got like a sweetness like ranking for every recipe, like 3 strawberries, right? Up in the top corner. So for those people that don't like something too sweet and people that have a sweeter tooth, you can also do that. 100%. Someone actually, because you just mentioned the jam, how would you make a healthy fig jam if you were to make it?
Super easy, because here's the thing. You can buy dried figs and they're incredibly sweet. And all you would have to do is substitute my date paste recipe and use figs. And right there, you've got your jam. You don't probably have to add any sweetener because figs are so sweet. And you probably wouldn't even have to add chia seeds because being a dried fruit with all that pectin, it's probably going to firm up really, really easy. So that's an easy one, Deb.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So what motivated you to make a dessert only book?
Yeah. So people have been asking for years to have all my recipes in one place because, well, first of all, people have been asking for years for me to write a cookbook with a photo with every recipe, which is a gargantuan task in terms of cost, because people don't realize that it's not cheap to have color photos for every single recipe. So that was always in the back of my head. And when I would get reviews for my other books, the unfavorable ones would be there's no photos or there's not a photo of every recipe. So that was always a goal of mine. When I was a pastry chef at Santé Restaurant, people really wanted those recipes. And I did come out with a small ebook with like 30 of them, but they weren't all in there. And just the fact that people are always telling me, even people that like say they never eat dessert or they don't eat sugar and flour, I hear from people all the time that when they fall off plan or when they relapse or when they have what I call a snacksident, it's not on this. It's on the kind of stuff like, a Cinnabon or something really rich in indulgence. And my feeling is if you got these recipes, when you have a snack attack, make one of these. This is so much better than having something that has oil and sugar and flour, in my opinion. And because there's actual food value, I mentioned this before on another podcast, when I was in the throes of my food addiction for the first 43 years of my life, we had a grocery store near us in Southern California called Ralph's, and they had a bakery. And my favorite thing was white cake with white frosting, wedding cake type things, preferably with coconut and raspberry jam. But they made these cupcakes and they were in a 6-pack and the frosting was mounted on like the cover of my book with sprinkles. And I would buy the 6-pack and I would eat the 6-pack. And I'm glad they didn't have a 12-pack because I would eat them, because with sugar and flour and oil, there's no satiety. You will literally keep eating and eating and eating because it was designed that way. But with these, I would be hard pressed to find somebody that could eat the whole plate of these, because the fiber alone is going to make, at the height of my hungriness, once I ate 3 and I was like, oh my God, I'm so full. These are so sweet. So when food has actual food value, water, fiber, nutrients, micronutrients, antioxidants, phytochemicals, there is something where like the brain is like, oh, I got food, I can stop eating. But the reason that people can eat a 2,000 calorie, meal at McDonald's is because there's no fiber to ever put the brakes on or the eating. And with sugar and with flour, for many people, especially people with sensitive brains that have, susceptibility to food addiction, they will keep eating those desserts. And even if you couldn't stop eating these desserts, I think it would be a lot healthier than not being able to stop eat the other desserts. But I bet you will. And the richer ones, like the chocolate peanut butter ones, I don't eat those anymore. But when I was transitioning from Coke Slurpees and Dr. Pepper, those were the methadone that eventually got me off of white sugar. So I'm a big fan of the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the whole fruit.
That's just it. And I'm a person who has a sweet tooth as well. And so I know I need to have desserts in my life. So having books like yours are the kind of things that's going to keep me from reaching into those unhealthy things. Because like you said, it's like my daughter likes to say that, well, you have your normal stomach, but then you have a dessert stomach.
Well, I've always said that too. That is so funny. I always felt that way too. But no matter how, I'll tell you a funny story, Jeremy. So I used to work at the True North Health Center for a special program for about 8 years, starting in 2011. It was called the Holiday Cooking Extravaganza. And one year, one of the chefs, Lori, she was doing a cooking demonstration, and she made something called the potato meal, which was delicious. It's something that I actually put the recipe in my book. You take a potato, you take a sweet potato, and you stuff it with like corn and beans and maybe guacamole and salsa, whatever you want. Just a very filling meal. You can make a buffet for people. Even people that don't eat vegan used to love when I would do this. They could put whatever they wanted. And so, we're eating this, and, probably 400 calories for this huge amount of food. And we're eating it, and we're thinking it's delicious. And so she said to us, there were 40 people in the class. She goes, would anybody like another? And everybody said, oh, no, we're so full. We couldn't eat another bite. So then she goes into the kitchen and she comes out with this carrot cake, and she goes, who'd like carrot cake? And all the hands went up, even though we just said we were so full, we can't eat another bite. So it's absolutely true. There's, like they used to say, there's always room for Jell-O. There seems to always be room for dessert.
Yeah. Well, that's just it, right?
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions, some people, and then I have some more stuff. Actually, no, before we do that, let's get to some questions, because now I've said it, and I'd be really rude if I didn't jump over there. This is something I wanted to bring up anyway, so I'm glad Vi brought it up. We've already talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about the importance of like that first week of sales for a cookbook author and what it means, because a lot of people don't realize that how much of a difference that does make.
It does make a difference. And thanks for the great question, Vi, because obviously most people aren't entrenched in the publishing world or talking to publicists or book agents. But the first week is critical, because there is, to my knowledge, there's only one vegan publisher, my publisher, Book Publishing, and I am his last book, and he is retiring. You can look him up. He was the person that published Louise Hagler's Tofu Cookery, a book that many of us OG vegans had back in the day. He published The Pleasure Trap, Dr. McDougall books, Miyoko Shinner's, Brenda Davis, and his name is Bob Hopfazel, and he's a lifelong vegan. And he's getting out of publishing because now traditional publishers are publishing vegan books, because when a vegan book does well, whether it's, a whole food plant-based vegan book or any vegan book, it gets the attention of publishers and book agents, and then they want to write more vegan books. And then the people that maybe are not as well known but have amazing recipes, it gives them a chance to get their foot in the door. But it's that first week that is critical. Look, there's a lot of great books on there that didn't make New York Times bestseller that continue to sell well, and that's awesome. But it's not even the first week. It's the first 5 days and everything that came before in the pre-sales. Listen, I didn't design this system, but for New York Times bestseller list, but however they do it, that's what they count. They want the orders to be from a variety of places, not just Amazon, small independent New York Times reporting bookstores like A Seat at the Table, where you can actually get a signed copy from me. And, everything counts. Walmart, I don't know look, it's an elusive process. Believe me, if it was easy, we would all do it. And it's not like you can call them up and say, hey, New York Times, tell me what I can do. I do know, though, it has to come from a variety of sources, because ostensibly, then some rich person could just buy, 20,000 copies on Amazon and make the list. So I think they do notice that it has to come from that source. But it just, when a vegan, I can't think of the name of the book, but there was some vegan book, was it punk something? There was something post-punk kitchen or punk rock. There was a book that just was off the charts. And after that, so many more people were offered the opportunity to write vegan books by publishers.
Thug Kitchen? Was it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Thug Kitchen. Like, that book did really, really, really well. And then, so it's just good. And then, and this book is not just for vegans. And so it's funny, because I don't know why Barnes and Noble, just because my recipes are gluten-free, keep putting me in the gluten-free section and not the vegan section. It is a vegan book, but there's a large portion of the population that wants to be gluten-free, or that has to be gluten-free by necessity. And I meet people all the time, especially when I teach in these spas. They're never going to become vegan or plant-based, but for whatever reason, they've decided not to eat sugar in their diet, refined sugar. And so there are people that I think might resonate with this book that are not vegan. And, you could say the recipes are incidentally vegan. But even so, like I say, there would have never been eggs in this recipe or cheese anyway in this recipe. So there's a lot of dessert recipes that are already vegan out there.
Yeah, I think the solution for that is for them to stock twice as many of your books, put some in the gluten-free section and some in the vegan section, and then you're covered.
That would be ideal. Yep.
Yeah. And like you said, I know from talking to other cookbook authors that, if you live in a place that has small mom and pop bookstores that aren't just like an Indigo or, or Barnes and Nobles and that kind of stuff, if you don't see the book, like a book like Chef AJ's, ask for it. That's the way those things get stocked too, right? They want it. They're happy to sell it to you if you want it, and those kind of things get in the system too. So if you don't see, ask, right? Because it really helps.
You're absolutely right, because I'm in the database of Barnes and Noble, so I only know there's 4 near me, and I only know that 2 are carrying it. I don't know about the other 2, but you can. A book like this can be ordered by them because it's on their website for goodness sakes,
Yeah. Annalise was asking, do you ship your signed copies to Germany?
Okay. So I personally can't because I don't have any, but I will tell you that if you can contact A Seat at the Table, they might do it. Obviously, they're going to have to charge you for the postage, but I don't see why they would not do that if you are willing to pay the postage. So you'd want to go to aseatathetable.org and then maybe they could do it for you. It's funny that you mentioned that because my second book, which is called The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, the only language it was translated into was German.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, interesting fact. Fun fact.
We'll do this quick. Marie said they couldn't find date syrup at their Walmart.
Yeah, okay, so Marie, I don't know where you live, but you might want to ask them because a lot of the Walmarts do carry it. It's not yet available, I can tell you, at the Walmart in Tecate, Mexico, but you can still get it at as good or better price at Amazon. And you can also get it at the website of the lady that makes it, Colleen. It's called ilovedatelady.com. And if you go to her website to buy it and use the code Chef AJ, no spaces, I don't think it's case sensitive, you'll get a 10% off discount. So often using that discount makes it the same price or cheaper than Amazon. And I do love her products. I do eat a little bit of salt. So she also makes an amazing barbecue sauce that is date sweetened and an amazing sweet Thai chili sauce that is date sweetened. So those aren't available at Walmart, but they're available on her website and Amazon. So yeah, and let me just show you something. So at Walmart, they only have this size. So it ends up being cheaper for me to just buy it from I Love Date Lady so that I can get, the larger size. There we go. So this is the gallon and this is the half gallon. This one's pretty heavy when it's full, so I usually just get the half gallon. And, if you wanted to make date syrup yourself, you can, but it's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour. So is your time worth it? For me, it's not. I used to before I knew that it was available. So
yeah, for sure. Phyllis is asking, what brand of vanilla powder do you recommend in California?
So I buy it on Amazon. And what I do is I search for the ratings, like what the best, I'm not married to any particular brand. The funny thing is, Phyllis, is that I have all these different brands because I've told people, look, I'm almost 65. I don't want more stuff. If you're going to ever get me a gift, whether it's coming to my dinner gift or birthday gift. So I have all these different brands. I don't find a difference in them. So I would suggest you buy the one that's cheapest at the time. And what's nice about Amazon is when you put things in your cart, when the price drops, you're notified and you can get it then. Dr. Furman sells it. His brand is wonderful, but it's going to be $200, not because his is more expensive, because he sells this giant bag. And when I got it, it lasted about a year and a half. So I can show you the one I have now, and it's... I
want to see it now.
Yeah. And whether you can make your own... Let me say one thing about that. So this is just the brand that I happen to have now. And I've had other brands at other times. And remember, you want vanilla bean powder, pure vanilla bean powder. There's nothing that smells as amazing as this, because vanilla powder, which it can be available at the regular grocery store, like Cook's vanilla powder, is white, has dextrose in it. It's not pure vanilla bean powder. So can you make your own? If I had my phone here, I would Google it, and I bet you can. But here's the problem, Phyllis, is it's not going to be any cheaper. It's probably going to be more expensive, because unless you can buy, like when I worked at the restaurants, we were able to buy things like in bulk that were cheaper than to the public. But I haven't seen great prices on vanilla beans. And if vanilla bean powder is vanilla beans ground up, I think it's going to be more expensive to make your own than to buy it. And I'm not exactly sure how they make it, but that's a great question. I'm going to look into it. But, even local spicery has their own little brand, and, it's going to vary in price depending on how much you get. Because if you've ever gone to just even a regular grocery store, like I've seen 2 vanilla beans in a jar for $18.99, and the powder is going to be a lot less, and you're going to get a lot more servings out of it. Now, Phyllis, you can make your own vanilla water, which is a little bit different. I don't know the recipe by heart, but I could look it up and then send it to Jeremy, because when I worked at the True North Health Center, we couldn't use vanilla extract because it had alcohol, and we couldn't use alcohol-free, which is what we used in the restaurants, because in case there were people that had alcohol issues, or in rehab, they couldn't have even the small amount of alcohol. We had to use alcohol-free, but that had glycerin, which is sugar. So when I started working at True North, he goes, neither of those are good. Well, it would be very cost prohibitive to always use a vanilla bean. And so I found a recipe. There's a wonderful restaurant, I think it's still in Los Angeles, called Cafe Gratitude. It's a raw restaurant that were known for their raw desserts. And they had a recipe for vanilla water that was used like extract. It was a liquid. And I don't have the exact ratio. It was something like 2 vanilla beans and 3 cups of water blended in a high-powered blender. The thing is, it didn't last forever. That was the only downside to it, like vanilla bean powder will. So you might, if you're going to make it yourself, you might be better off making the vanilla water.
Good to know. So Tanya I think she did some research while we were talking, says Date Lady sadly doesn't ship to Canada yet. So let's get on emailing her and telling her.
Yeah, I mean, she's very nice. She's very responsive. Her name is Colleen. She's on Instagram. And guys, if they don't ship to Canada, usually it's not because they don't want to. Let me just say this. The pandemic made it very hard for these companies. I will tell you that certain companies that I endorse, like California Balsamic, even though they say they don't ship to Canada, if you call them and are willing to pay shipping, Tanya, I don't know what part of Canada you live in, but my friend Susanna, she lives in a part of Canada that's close to the United States. And what she does is she gets a USPO box. And so she's able to get all these things. And the other thing is if you have friends in the United States that maybe are going to visit you, that's another option.
Yeah. And worst case scenario, as Dominique says, we got maple syrup. It just comes out of the trees here.
I'm not taking it away. I'm just adding something to your toolbox.
Exactly. And then the last question I got here before I'll throw a couple more at you, and then I'm going to let you go because I know you got a busy day. And this is just more of a compliment. And they're endorsing just all the extra videos that we already mentioned here in the chat, and all the wonderful perks that you've included in the pre-order and just the order of this book.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, listen, of course I like the book. I wrote it, but I got to tell you, I think the bonuses are worth the price of the book, because I mean, you're getting a lot from it. And I want to show you this, Jeremy. You've probably seen it because I know you've looked at the book, but I don't know if you happen to see the last picture in the book. This is a 7-year-old kid named Luca who took my Sweet Indulgence dessert masterclass. And he was able to make the strawberry chocolate cheesecake when he was 7 years old. He's 9 years old now. But I took these pictures of him. And so I feel if Luca can do it, so can you. And then I want to show you, I have a couple of favorite pictures in the book. And this is one of mine. I had a wonderful designer, Janine Elder of Potato Wisdom, who wrote her own fabulous book. And of course, Hannah Kaminsky that did the photos. But for people that don't believe it, I've been eating desserts my entire life. And here's the proof. At a variety of ages, from about 4 to about 21, every photo of me is with some kind of candy, cake, cookie, pie, or ice cream. And then I'll show you my favorite. I have 2 favorite photos in the book. One is this. This is the Spoon It category.
I love
and
that.
I just, I'm real. If this is what I said, because if my book becomes a New York Times bestseller, I'm gonna ask the photographer. I'm gonna just this is gonna be the art. I'm gonna make art out of this. And I don't know why that this was almost the cover of the book, but I just love this photo because it's just, I don't know, it's just my favorite. What can I tell you? Yep. And so anyway, but thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. I've been wondering, behind you, there's something that's hanging. What is that?
That's just literally, I think my daughter decorated. This is our little art room. I'm surrounded by art supplies.
I thought maybe it was like an extra. I'm thinking like, does he hang from there? Is it a workout thing? Okay, cool.
It's ribbon.
Yep.
It's ribbon that was put up for a birthday months ago that we've been doing.
Nice.
Down.
I want people to think about though, this is also my second favorite recipe, the rustic fruit tart. Try that one if you can. Even though the holidays are far away, think about getting advanced copies now because this will make a great holiday gift. There's wonderful holiday recipes like fruit cake, like pecan pie made with 2 ingredients. And by the way, for the people that can't get date syrup, most of the recipes don't use date syrup. Most of them use dates or date paste or even bananas and pears.
Yeah. I think we've got someone that's just asking about the bonuses. How do people get the bonuses for the book?
Yeah. So the email, I don't, honestly, Terry, I don't know who the email is coming from, but there's a website, sweetindulgencebook.com. If you scroll, I can't remember if you scroll up or down, but at the bottom, there's a place to upload the recipe. If for some reason you have any trouble getting the bonuses, please email our help desk, help@chefaj.com. We're a small business, so it's not like a 24-hour thing, but we will help you as soon as possible. It doesn't matter. Even if you came to us in 2 months, as long as a year from now, as long as your receipt is dated August 31st, 2024 or sooner, you will get those bonuses. And I know that some people are buying multiple copies to help me out for gifts. So you can gift the bonus to somebody else just by putting in a different email.
Great. That's such a great tip. We'll finish up. I've got some questions I always like to ask everyone, and I think it'd be fun to ask you. You're stranded on a desert island, okay? And you don't know how long you're going to be there, but they're only going to give you enough ingredients to make three different meals. So the same breakfast, the same lunch, the same dinner every single day. What are you going to make? What are the things that you could have over and over again that would not make you, that you wouldn't get sick?
Well, the thing is I have eaten almost every day for lunch for 12 years, sweet potatoes, meaning the white ones, the Hannah yams and broccoli. So we take those. But, recently my favorite food since I moved up here has become vegan sushi. So if I could have that, I would be very, very happy. And sushi nachos. Can I have sushi nachos?
How about sushi nachos?
Oh my God, it's on my channel. So sushi is my favorite food. Nachos are my second favorite food. And I'm like, well, what if I eat them together? So what I do is instead of making sushi into a roll, I make a deconstructed sushi bowl with everything I love. Okay, and then I put the baked corn tortilla chips on a plate, cover it with sushi nachos, put my chilies. It's my favorite thing to eat is sushi nachos.
Oh, that's a wonderful fusion dish. I love that.
It's so good. So those would be that. But I would worry I'd not get enough calories because I was looking over there at my favorite fruit, which is called the sugar kiss melon, but they're only available about 2 months a year. So I need some starch to feel full. So I've got to have some sweet potatoes. I got to have some rice and probably broccoli.
Well, because of the nature of your book, I'm going to let you bring a dessert too. So what's your dessert you're bringing on the desert island?
Oh, oh my God. I might have to bring the granola just because I feel like I'm always... I'm worried about being hungry, and so I need something with calories. So I'm going to bring the granola.
You bring the topping that you put on the pears there, and that way, whatever fruit you find on the island, you just put it on top.
Yeah, I can just make it regularly. I always worry about those kind of things because I'd be so lonely and so. I saw that movie Castaways, and boy, he was talking to the volleyball after a while.
You can talk to your granola.
I talk to my sugar kiss melon. Yeah.
Okay. So for people out there that are just starting to eat this way, maybe they're on a bit of a limited budget, but they can splurge on a couple must-have kitchen tools. What would be if they could splurge on 3, what would your advice be?
Instant Pot for sure. For sure. That number one. Not everybody has to have an air fryer. I love to have an air fryer, but I didn't have it for years. So Instant Pot, for sure, or a pressure cooker. It doesn't have to be that company. I do feel a food processor is going to be very helpful in life. And then third place is going to be between a high-powered blender and a pressure cooker. But I'm going to go with an air fryer. I'm going to go with the air fryer. I could live without my blender. I really could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to take those. I'm going to take that. I'm looking at them. Instant Pot, air fryer, food processor. That's what I'm going to pick for me.
For me, it's like, I think as long as you got either the food processor or the blender, you can kind of make it work, but not having either of them it's a challenge when you're eating this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is I always advise people to get the biggest and the best they can afford. And I know not everyone could afford everything and not everyone has the space, but there are things that you can get that are not that expensive. So I shop at both Sam's Club and Costco. Ninja Creamy, for example, for me, that's a must have, but not for everybody, right? But I've seen incredible prices there. I've seen pressure cookers on there for as low as $39 at times. I have seen combination Instant Pot air fryers there. I've seen air fryers for, you see things at very affordable prices. But even before I had the Breville, which is the king of food processors, I had an amazing, it was $87. It was a Black & Decker. You could get it at a hardware store. It was a wonderful, wonderful food processor. I didn't always have a high-powered blender. I was teaching cooking with a $19 Oster blender. I had to blend it longer and it didn't maybe come as smooth as a Vitamix. So the thing is you don't always have to start out with the most expensive, but at some point, if you want to, have maybe a little bit finer product, you might want to invest in those if you can. Always look for those Black Friday specials or the July, I know a lot of people don't like Amazon, but man, when it's Black Friday, you gotta buy it then. I've seen things so ridiculously affordable at that time.
Yeah. And I would say for the majority of people that are starting to eat this way, just by put all the money away that you would normally spend on takeout or going out to restaurants for a month or two, put it aside, and then you're going to have enough money to buy all the appliances you'll need.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you had no appliances, you can still eat healthfully. You know what I mean? You really can. Because the truth is I don't cook like a chefy chef. I have, especially this week when I'm so busy, I had microwave white organic rice yesterday as part of my meal. It took 3 minutes in the microwave. So I think you need, unless you're a raw foodist, you need some way to cook it, whether it's a pressure cooker, a stove, or a microwave. But I don't think you have to complicate it. And things like beans, they come already salt-free in cans. There's so many things that can make this way of eating quick and easy. But like what's nice about a pressure cooker is you can cook beans in it. You can cook rice in it. You can cook steel cut oats. You can do so many things with it. And it's a time saving device too.
Amazing. So just as we finish up, one last question, if you had one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is starting to eat the way that we eat, that might be struggling a little bit, what would that be?
Well, first I need to know what they're struggling from. Are they missing flavor? Are they missing fat? Are they missing animal products? One thing I would tell them is to get into some kind of a community. And that doesn't mean you have to join a paid community, but there's so many free, wonderful Facebook groups now for all the different doctors, for example, for people, it's never been easier to connect with like-minded people, especially during the pandemic, because sometimes people are struggling really because they're not eating enough. So we need to know why you're struggling. If it's because you miss animal products, then maybe don't go vegan overnight. Maybe have everything be vegan except for that one thing you're really missing. I've had people say, well, I can't go vegan because when I'm in Paris, I have to have the cheese. Well, how often you go to Paris? Well, I haven't been there yet. So the point is you don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And just because you may not be able to do everything doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. Just try to include as many plants in your daily meals as possible. And in the areas that you're not willing or able to give up, then have those. But, it's not like 100% or nothing. Maybe if you're, this close to having to have open heart surgery or go on diabetes medication, maybe you need to do more and do quicker. But if it's just transitioning to a plant-based diet, a lot of times people struggle, Jeremy, because they're not eating enough calories, because with the exception of oil, plant food is just so much lower in caloric density and it's so filling that sometimes you're just hungry and you need to eat more food.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. For those that are watching this now or watching this after, and if you haven't done it yet, pick up AJ's new book. The link is down in the description, or and you don't have to buy it from there. Buy it from wherever you can, because as AJ said earlier, getting it from a variety of sources is the kind of thing that really helps out the authors and just the vegan cookbook community as a whole. Just letting people know that there's a desire for more books like this. Thanks again for watching. AJ, stick around for a second. We'll give a proper goodbye to each other. But everyone else, thanks again. It's been a while since I've done a live stream because I've been busy over the summer, but we're going to start doing them a lot more regularly this fall. So stick around for more of those. Thank you for all of the wonderful comments. I know a lot of you are just getting your books in here and you're excited to cook with AJ. So when you're done doing that, make sure you hop over to her channel or any of her other socials and let her know which of your recipes you love. Take photos of them, include her and whatnot, and just spread the word about it and any other book that you love.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And thank you everyone who's gotten my book or who will get my book. And thank you everyone that's eating plants. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right. See you, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.